Hello Mazansi, welcome to our stories. Today we take a hard look at one of the most shocking examples of public fund plunder in South Africa. How money meant to save lives ended up funding a luxury lifestyle. We ask the question, why is someone allegedly behind this still walking free? Let's begin. In recent news articles, it was revealed that Hangwani Maumela bought a 52 million rand Pagani Huayra Roadster, a rare supercar, one of only about 100 in existence. He reportedly bought it with money alleged to have been looted from the public purse via procurement contracts at Tembisa Provincial Tertiary Hospital in Gauteng. The story gets worse. Investigations by the Special Investigating Unit, SIU, show that this car is part of a luxury asset spree. More than 208 rand million spent in less than 2 years, via a syndicate of over 40 shell companies. Now pause for a moment. That money was meant to feed patients, to procure equipment, to sustain a public tertiary hospital. And instead, it is channeled into exotic cars. This is not theoretical. The SIU itself confirms that the hospital looting amounts to over 2 billion rand. So the question, if the money has been traced, if assets have been seized, why is the individual not behind bars? According to reports, the SIU and the National Prosecuting Authority's Asset Forfeiture Unit have seized luxury cars, properties and artworks linked to Maumela and his family. Yet, the arrest of Maumela himself remains elusive. If you can freeze assets, if you can show links between a man and illicit procurement contracts, why stop at assets? Why not criminal charges, detention, court cases in full view of the public? This raises serious issues. 1. The gap between civil, asset forfeiture processes and criminal prosecution. 2. The question of political will. When those alleged to have perpetrated massive corruption remain free, it sends a message of impunity. 3. The victims are ordinary South Africans, patients at Tembisa, health workers, taxpayers, yet the extractors live lavishly while infrastructure collapses. Adding another layer to this saga is the fact of 2 fires at Tembisa Hospital. On the 19th of April 2025, a blaze broke out in the accident and emergency unit. 3 days later, a second fire erupted in the outpatient/records room. Investigators did not rule out arson. Why is this relevant? Because the hospital is under investigation for massive procurement corruption, and these fires hit archive/records sections, the very documents needed for investigations. Importantly, though, the Deputy Minister of Health said the documents linked to fraud investigations were not destroyed. Still, 2 fires in short succession at the same institution raise questions of sabotage, intimidation, or cover-up. The union representing hospital workers, National Education, Health and Allied Workers Union, NEHAWU, demanded speedy investigation, pointing to non-compliance with occupational health and safety regulations and a chaotic situation post-fire. What does this mean? While the spotlight is on luxury cars and looted money, the hospital itself, the very institution from which funds were allegedly siphoned, is experiencing critical infrastructure failures, fires and service disruptions. Patients and staff are paying the price. Let's be blunt about it. If someone uses funds meant for a public health institution to buy a 52 million rand supercar, that is theft. If syndicates of shell companies were set up to channel contracts and invoices, that is fraud, collusion, and money laundering. The SIU's interim report says 3 syndicates were identified, including Maumela's, with procurement bundles worth over 2 billion rand. Yet the visible outcomes are asset seizures. There is little evidence of successful prosecutions to match the scale of the theft. This gap matters, because if seizure alone is the end of the story, what deterrent does it provide? What justice for the patients who didn't get the care they paid for? What accountability for the officials who signed off on contracts or for the service providers who colluded? We have to ask, are we dealing with selective enforcement? Are the hearings dragging or blocked? Is this a case where the powerful shield themselves behind legal delays, while ordinary people suffer? The story also has a political tint. Maumela is reported to be a nephew of Cyril Ramaphosa from a previous marriage, though the president has publicly distanced himself. Nevertheless, this kind of connection, real or perceived, raises public suspicion. If someone connected to power is allegedly looting billions but remains at large, it undermines trust in institutions. The public begins to believe the rules apply for some, but not for others. When the head of a major health facility, tasked with providing care to the vulnerable, is part of a system allowing millions to leak out into supercars and mansions, it's not just about money, it's about dignity, about whether South Africa still believes in fairness and shared responsibility. Why does it matter that this alleged kingpin remains free? Because arrest sends a signal. It says the system will hold you accountable. Without arrest, the message is you may get your assets seized eventually, but you can continue your life, your luxury, your movement while the process grinds on. That is not justice. Asset seizure is valuable. Yes, it restores some of what was stolen, but it is not sufficient if the person walking free continues to enjoy life while ordinary citizens lose hospitals, lose time, lose lives. Arrest and prosecution bring closure, deterrence, and a public demonstration of consequences. Let's never forget who pays. The 2 billion rand alleged to have been siphoned from Tembisa Hospital's procurement should have gone to patients, those in a township hospital, many with limited resources, many from marginalized communities. Instead, that money channeled through shell companies ends up funding luxury cars, mansions, and art. That is theft not just of money, but of hope. The fires, the chaos in the hospital, the overburdened staff, these are not isolated problems. They are linked to the same ecosystem of corruption. When procurement gets subverted, when equipment doesn't arrive, when contracts are inflated, hospital infrastructure crumbles, patients die. True story. The moral cost is huge. So what needs to happen now? Here are the key demands. 1. Arrest and prosecute. If the SIU has identified Maumela's syndicate, shell companies, contracts worth hundreds of millions, asset links, then the justice process must move beyond forfeiture. There must be criminal charges, a public trial, conviction if proven. 2. Transparency. The findings of the SIU must be made public. Procurement records, shell company ownership charts, asset registers. Citizens must see the links so they believe change is real. 3rd, institutional reform. The Department of Health, the hospital management, the supply chain system, they must be cleaned up. The fires reminded us of failing infrastructure and safety. That is partly downstream of corruption. So we need prevention, lifestyle audits, independent oversight, compulsory rotation of procurement officials, blacklisting of service providers found complicit. 4th, victim redress. The funds recovered must go back to the hospital, to equipment, to staffing, to training. The public must see that stolen money finds its way home. 5. Accountability at all levels. It is not just the alleged kingpins who must face the music. The public service officials, the procurement heads, the directors must all be held to account. When you set up systems to let syndicates thrive, that is your failure too. In a democratic South Africa, where many fought and sacrificed for equal rights, the era of seeing public funds used to bankroll luxury lifestyles while the poor bear the cost must end. The story of Hangwani Maumela, the Pagani, the shell companies, the fires at Tembisa Hospital is not just about scandal. It is about the betrayal of trust. It is about whether the rules apply equally. It is about whether the state sides with the people or with the plunderers. We look at a man who allegedly diverted hospital funds into a 52 million rand supercar. We look at a hospital where fires broke out suspiciously. We see asset seizures, but no visible criminal accountability. We see a gap, a wound in our system of justice and governance. And we ask, when will the walk the talk begin? When will we see justice served? When will the voices of the voiceless, the patients in Tembisa, the staff stretched beyond breaking, the taxpayers be heard? Thank you for watching. If you found this story important, please like, share, and subscribe to Mzansi Our Stories. Let's keep shining light into areas where darkness has too long held sway. We'll keep tracking this story as it develops, and we'll bring the updates. Because justice delayed is not justice denied, but justice that takes too long risks becoming just a story. Stay safe, stay vigilant, and until next time, keep demanding accountability.